Good afternoon. Please open roll for those who are present, please. All right.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Before we get started, let's just for house cleaning. First of all, Senate Bill 884, Senator Chase. That bill back for the day. And the governor's appointments, SJ 70, 270, 271, 272, and 273, and 276. They are by for today. I want to make sure that everybody gets a copy. Look at it very thoroughly. We just picked it up today. So I want to make sure that we all get a copy of it, look at it, and then once we are certified, we all have seen it, then we'll put it back on the document. But for the day, it's bypassed for the day.
1380 by for the day.
1380 bypass for the day. Do we have a sign-up sheet? That's it right here. Student line. Yes, sir. Thank you. Senate Bill 1524. Election 1524. Student line. You don't look like a football player. You're not Ross. I want a football player. Is he not here? If not, we'll wait on you, yes, sir. Let's go ahead with yours, sir.
All right, I've got two bills for your consideration. I don't know if there's one you want me to start with.
You tell me, sir.
All right, I'll start with Senate Bill 947.
All right.
Senate Bill 947 creates a 4% cap on the filing fee for candidates for public office here in the Commonwealth. It makes it so that you cannot require more than a 4% filing fee if you're running with one of the major parties that start with ballot access. I think that people have a right to be able to run. The parties have special privileges by being allowed to, their candidates by virtue of being a nominee get to be on the ballot, and I think part of that responsibility that comes with that benefit is that it should be open.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about a nominating process that is held by the party, and you want us to set the rules?
That's not what I'm saying, sir.
But you are asking us to set the filing fee.
I'm asking for there to be a mandatory filing fee. If you're running in a primary, it's at 2%. We've put several other requirements on the parties because they have special privileges. The difference between if you're a nominee of one of the two major parties or an independent is you get automatic ballot access by being the nominee. I think with that comes responsibilities. 2 years ago, it was decided by the General Assembly that we need to make sure that those methods of nomination did not discriminate against various groups of people, including our military people overseas and people with physical access issues. And so it was said, we'll see when it goes into effect going forward in January 1. A lot of people think it will likely mean a primary will be what's required, but at the very least, if the parties continue to have their methods of nomination, they're going to have to abide by these rules provided by the General Assembly and signed into law by the governor. I think that we should have a 4% filing fee. It's something that is very reasonable. We've gone through, in recent years, we've seen sometimes the fees be 8%, 17%, 19%, and 28% filing fees. And these percentages are based off of salary. So we've had situations where we've asked people who are running for a position that pays $18,000 a year, we say the filing fee to run is $5,000. And sometimes it might not even be for a full term. And I just think that's outrageous, and I don't think that, I think the parties should have to abide by having broad access to it. 4%, there's still is enough to cover their expenses.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Have you consulted with the chairs of the state Democratic and Republican Party, or did you just come up with this 4% yourself?
Well, 4%, the Republican Party supports it.
Have you talked with the Democratic Party?
The Democratic chair and I don't talk regularly, no, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
But Rich Anderson, the RPV chair, he's aware of it. He told me 4% would definitely be easy to abide by the Republican Party. And then he pointed out that is the requirement. The Republican Party can't have a higher fee than 4% now.
Bless your heart. We have someone from the Democratic Party. Yeah. Make sure you tell us who you are. Make sure that you're a Democrat, please.
Senator Suderline, I'm the Democratic Party Chair, and I'm always happy to talk to you.
Very good.
Susan Swecker, and actually Rich Anderson and I talk sometimes, so I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, and I think you just ought to really let the party, each political party figure their own process out.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. So you have one in here in support of your bid that would like to speak?
I did not bring anyone.
All right. Is anyone in opposition would like to speak?
Those on
Other
Zoom
than my
would like,
chairman.
those on Zoom who would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers, Mr. Chairman.
Members of the committee, any comments from members of the committee would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. So, I mean, I appreciate your concern about the size of the fee, but you take a jurisdiction, for example, like Fairfax County, the jurisdiction of 1.1 million people. If you have a special election for, say, the school board, I guess we don't do that partisan. They have a $30,000 salary. It's a countywide election, but I guess that's not, we don't
That
do
would not
partisan
be right.
nominations for that. Soil and Water Board,
Also would not have a party-run nomination. They get nominated by petition. So I think the only person in Fairfax County would be one of your constitutional officers, which all receive six-figure salaries. So 4% would be still allowing a 4%, about $4,000 filing fee. And you have to remember, if you actually have to run a contest, you get the benefit of at least two people running. And it's also unlikely to be a constitutional office because the way the special election law works, they would be appointing their successor, and then they would be able to run through at a regular time. So I can't think of many times where that happens, in part because of that reason. This basically, it's going to come up in General Assembly situations.
Thank you so much. If no other question, ready for motion, please? We open by motions?
Second.
Substitute motion,
Substitute motion?
PBI.
PBI. Open the roll, please. PBI.
Ayes 9, noes 6.
Ayes 9, no 6. Thank you so much, sir. You have another, please?
Yes, I have more. Senate Bill 944, Mr. Chairman?
944.
Yes, sir. Senate Bill 944 provides that special elections for the General Assembly, when the vacancy would occur between December 10th and March 1, special elections that need to be ordered within 30 days. This ensures that people get to have an elected legislator here representing them during that window. Both Governor Northam and Governor Youngkin issued writs for election for House of Delegates under that time for Delegate Campbell this last December. And previously, Governor Northam did it for Delegate Carol Foy's vacant seat that Delegate Mundoon King got elected to. That was not always the case, though. We all remember Senator Hackworth did not join us during the session because Governor Northam chose to let that seat that everyone presumed was likely to elect a Republican stay vacant the entire General Assembly session.
It's the same. This is similar to the same bill you had last year, SB 66.
It's similar. The one difference is Senator Servell and I talked about making sure the language was clearer on the vacancy portion, and so I believe this reflects that conversation.
Thank you. We have anyone present in support of this bill, please?
Those on Zoom who would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, how you doing?
Hi, I'm Deb Wake with the League of Women Voters of Virginia. We do support this bill. We think that it promotes representation for constituents, and thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Anyone else present speak in favor of the bill? Anyone on Zoom that is present will speak in favor of the bill?
There is one speaker, Mr. Chairman.
In favor of the bill? Yes, please.
There always surprises. I'm sure what they have to say.
Allison Robbins, please unmute and provide your testimony now.
Yeah, hello, I'm Allison Robbins. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar for the County of Wise. We do not oppose this bill. We simply have a single concern related to just the timing of elections when they fall in December related to Christmas and the New Year's holidays. We think that there's certainly an opportunity maybe to clean up some language in the bill that would give us the opportunity to maybe make it 30 days from the writ of election as opposed to 30 days of the vacancy. But other than that, we support the bill and support the efforts of the patron to ensure that we have special elections to fill vacancies in the General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Anyone else present would like to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in opposition would like to speak to the bill?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand electronically.
Mr. Chairman?
Wait a minute.
That completes the speakers, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Let me get there in the audience first, and then I'll call you next, please. Anyone in the audience would like to speak in the opposition to the bill? Anyone? Senator? Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Chairman. I had a few questions for the patron. First, it says for a vacancy that occurs between December 1st and between December 10th and March 1st. If you had a vacancy on March 1st, but the General Assembly wasn't in session, why would we want to have the haste of the election with practically no time to the parties for their nomination processes?
The reconvened session matters a great deal. I would suggest, especially when we have divided government, the reconvened session might be the day we cast the most important votes of the entire year. Honestly, right now, Governor Youngkin's probably going to make these elections when I like them. But that's partly why I'm bringing the bill. I brought it in the very beginning of the Youngkin administration because I think that it's really important that the executive, whoever it is, not be able to leave legislative seats open for reconvene or for this. And I tried to be careful not to do it year-round and for that purpose. I don't want to force parties to go nominate quicker than necessary if they can play out a longer process when it's not going to affect the votes. But I can just tell you the number of people from Pulaski County, which is the closest county to me, that I heard from when Senator Chafin's seat was vacant. It's a very sad situation to hear from people who have no legislator here. And I wouldn't want that for any seat.
And to follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Right now, don't we require for overseas and military people the ability to vote for, is it 45 days? Does this impact that at all or change that?
I don't believe this would, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. I was thinking I was being asked by the former chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would tell the senator that I don't believe so because both Governor Northam and Governor Youngkin ordered special elections for the General Assembly within this window. Well, we had the same election laws. There's been no changes to the federal or state election laws since Governor Northam and Governor Youngkin made those orders. So I believe that we're fine by practice.
Mr. Chairman.
Wait a minute, are you through, Senator Evans? Yes, sir.
I was going to answer, speaking to the bill, answering Senator Evans' question. The state code says that the early voting period can be shortened in the event of a special election if it becomes necessary. However, for a congressional primary, there's certain federal requirements of early voting, which is why the special election for Congressman McEachin's seat was required to occur on a much longer time frame than the one we just saw for the legislative seat. So that's the current framework we operate within.
Any more questions from the members of the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm sympathetic to the bill. I just wonder if you've thought about anything, the arbitrariness of 30 days. You know, you could have an election scheduled the week between Christmas and New Year's or on a Jewish holy day. I mean, is there another way maybe we can word it such that we can avoid those days?
Well, I'm happy to listen to thoughts on that. The December 10th is in part there so that with 30 days rather, that pushes you into January every time. So I suspect what the governors are going to do, at least based on recent ones, with these constraints, will pick the Tuesday before. And if someone has something that I'm missing on it, and really what I'd like to require, if I had my way, and if any governor called and said, Senator Sunderland, when do you think I should call this election? I would always tell them you ought to order it to be held the Tuesday preceding the General Assembly, so you give the people in the district the most time to vet their candidates, to consider it, and then still make it so that on the next, as soon as possible, they're there. The Senate's a little different than the House, and I'm not getting into that right now, but Delegate Campbell and the Delegate Keem's successor, they both were able to be seated and immediately start taking votes. We hesitate a little more, but the hesitation, which I'm not getting into here, I think just makes it all the more important that election occur earlier, because if we're waiting, if our certification takes longer to be accepted, that means they're missing even more. And so, I think it's great that Senator Rouse was able to vote quickly. Even if he doesn't always vote the way I want him to, I want the people in Virginia Beach knowing that the man that they chose is here to advocate for them.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the patron.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you talked to any other of the registrars? The only thing that I'm concerned with, and I came in on a special election also in January of 2019, so I'm sensitive to this also. But have you heard from the registrars, the electoral boards throughout the Commonwealth, and have you gotten any feedback from them? That's certainly something that I'm taking into consideration.
Mr. Chairman, the feedback I heard was something similar to what we heard from the registrar in Wise County, which is, just questions about it. And so when I've talked with, it's hard talking about a group of 130 people, but in my conversations, I generally said, look, you won't run into Christmas, you won't run into, you wouldn't likely run into Hanukkah or Kwanzaa either, based on the calendar. Yes, there will be voting occurring during those periods, but that's just the nature of having a early voting process. I don't think that you can have, I'm not sure we can find 45 days on the calendar that doesn't run into something that's important to some of us.
Thank you. Question?
Mr. Chairman.
Wait a minute, excuse me.
Yeah.
Will you finish? Will you finish? Yes, Senator Scott?
Mr. Chairman, speaking, a question for the patron or somebody else in the crowd. I mean, when we talked about this last year, I mean, I'm kind of where Deeds is, and I appreciate you added a sentence to try to deal with the issues that I raised. My concern was not only the inflexibility, but what I've heard from some of the registrars about scheduling these things is that, for example, if an election has just occurred in November and all the machines get locked down because of a recount, they sometimes don't have the equipment available to be able to conduct another election that fast, and so they have to sometimes pace the elections in order to have the equipment capable of doing it. And then other larger jurisdictions, like just take Fairfax, because it has a lot of machines. Fairfax usually has a lot of machines that are spare, so it's easier for a jurisdiction like Fairfax to conduct a special right on the tail of a general, even if there's a recount going on. But in smaller jurisdictions where maybe all the machines are locked down for a recount, then it becomes challenging to restart the process, reprogram the machine, get it ready for an early vote period and all that other stuff in time to pass. And so that's the kind of conflicts I was concerned about. And without any flexibility in the statute, And I know the governor takes input from the State Board of Elections, who talks to the local registrar, and they try to come up with a recommendation to the governor about what date to pick. My concern was whether or not we're creating like that kind of a car crash scenario. And I mean, I'd just be curious if any registrars or somebody from the State Board of Elections has that concern. If they don't, then I don't have that concern. But that's what I was worried about last year.
Question, Senator McCollum?
And this, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This might actually be more for council, but I have a recollection that there is another code section that says that a special election cannot be held within 55 days of the June primary or the general election. How is that recollection accurate? And does that apply to General Assembly special elections? And how would this bill square with that provision?
Mr. Chair, Senator, you are correct. There is a statute that sets a time frame. I'm not sure if it's 55 days, but there is a time frame before any general election or a June primary where you can't have a special election.
And this bill would conflict with that. So which one would?
No.
No?
I don't believe. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I don't believe it would conflict because that is holding it before the elections. This, by virtue, would be after the November general election, and then it's so far in front of the June primary.
No, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a little bit of experience looking at this. The law that I'm talking about says that a special election, in general, cannot be held before a June primary, state-run primary, or a November election. It's not for the specific office that the vacancy is in, because the special election for the United States House 4th District had to be beyond, it could not be within 55 days of the 2023 primary or general election for General Assembly. So my question is, if you have a vacancy in a General Assembly seat that is within that 55-day, within that window that you're blocked between any state-run June statewide primary or November election, those two laws would conflict. What trumps?
Mr. Chairman, those dates by virtue wouldn't conflict because my window is only talking about vacancies that occur between December 10th and March 1. So we're far away from the 55-day window is preceding the election between those two elections. So we're okay.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question from members of the committee. Anyone present like to speak for it? Anyone present like to speak in opposition? If not, we operate on motions. There's a motion to move and support. Open the roll, please. Now you see statewide vote for your bill. You see that, right?
I saw what happened. Thank
right.
you.
Okay.
That's 15-0.
You get statewide a hard time, you know. Yeah.
I think you're doing an excellent job, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. What you got next?
The next bill is 946. This deals with our code section prohibiting fundraising during the legislative session. We had discussion last year. If I had my way, we would not have fundraising at all during any time the special session's in effect. One, I think that might mean we had less special sessions that run on forever. But regardless, what the bill before you today is very narrow. It's, I believe, I took the input you gave me last year and I tried to write the bill exactly so that it prohibits fundraising on any day we're actually meeting in special session. So it would mean when we're in those situations and it's a special session that more or less resembles a regular session and we're there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, During those 4 days, it's just like the regular session, and we can't fundraise. I would wish it was more expansive, but I don't think that we should be fundraising at all when we're meeting. I thought it was especially bad that a member of the other chamber was at their fundraiser while they were voting and participating in legislation. It was perfectly legal, but I hate hearing about that from constituents asking about that. I think that's pretty bad. I don't think we should be fundraising on days that we're meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone present in support of the bill, please come up forward, please.
A question for the patron. Do we do that?
Yes,
now,
yes, sir.
Mr. Chair. So, Senator, fundraisers, would that also include, let's say you were sitting on the House or Senate floor voting on bills that you would not be able to request contributions via Twitter or something along those lines during the session?
Yes, that would be accurate.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, please. Statewide, you can walk away. There you go. Let my people talk.
Hi, Deb Wake, League of Women Voters. Special sessions involve the same level of risk as regular sessions, and this restriction would help prevent even the appearance that campaign contributions could be exerting undue influence in an election, in an elected official as a candidate. So we do support this bill.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, please.
Those on Zoom who would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nancy Morgan from Big Money Out. We support this bill just because we believe that it's a blatant conflict of interest to have our legislators voting on bills at the same time as raising money. It's this serious conflict of interest erodes the trust in our voters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jacob Moore, and I am a politics major at UVA, and I support this bill. The state of Virginia already prohibits campaign fundraising during regular sessions of the General Assembly, and considering that the Virginia General Assembly only meets 60 or 30 days out of the year, legislators can afford to fully dedicate an extra 30 or 45 days to serving constituents. Legislative sessions, even when they're a special session, deserve the full time and energy of lawmakers, and allowing campaign fundraising is nothing more than allowing a distraction. The Virginia General Assembly should strive for good governance, and this bill constitutes a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone in the Zoom present want to speak in support of the bill?
There are no speakers on Zoom in support of this bill, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Senator Sudeline. Those of us that are in office, manage a job, we come down here, we spend 45 days, 60 days away from our work, everything else. Meanwhile, many of us face challengers in the spring. Do you think those challengers that have filed to be candidates for our offices should be held to the same standard that we have to hold, where we can't really run a campaign because we can't raise money, so we're at a disadvantage? Do you think that should be fair?
I have no problem with the fact that I know people that might be running against me can raise money when I can't. There's a whole lot of other benefits we get from being incumbents. And I think that this is one of the responsibilities that we have as legislators. The people were kind enough to let us represent them, and if they like what we're doing, there's a whole lot of other days we can raise money, and we can raise that money and do it then. I also think that it's better off. I think the Commonwealth benefits from having legislators that aren't focused on fundraising while we're meeting. And I think that's the way it ought to be at special session, too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, you're not a lawyer. You talk a whole lot for not being a lawyer. You're my friend. Okay, any other question from members of the committee?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
For Senator Sudeline and maybe for council, on lines 18 and 22, it's worded as that you can't fundraise on any day the General Assembly is scheduled to meet during a special session. Is there any other way to say that, like just meets or something? Why does it have to say scheduled to meet? Because generally we either meet or we don't.
Because I think it's in part because you would know, it would mean we wouldn't be able to fundraise the morning before we're meeting. And I welcome other folks' ideas, but that was the most direct way I could think to say it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Let me ask a question. Go ahead.
So I think what Senator Suline is trying to get, when a special session is called to convene on a certain day, and then when the House or the Senate adjourn on a given day, they adjourn until another day. So I think that's what he means is, and let me just ask you, if we are in, let's say we meet on March 16th and we adjourn until March 18th, you could not fundraise on the 16th or the 18th, but you could on the 17th.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, under this bill, that's the way it would be. I would love for you not to be able to fundraise on the 17th either, but
But the way you wrote it.
I wrote it this way because this is what I was told by the committee last year. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, let me ask Michael. Go ahead, sir, please.
So, Mr. Chairman, in the time I've been here, I remember there have been occasions where the chambers couldn't agree on when they were going to meet. And because of that, under our Constitution, it says that neither chamber can adjourn without the consent of the other for more than 3 days when we're in special. So I recall occasions in the recent past where some chambers were required to have pro forma sessions every 3 days or something like that in order to avoid violating the Constitution. It would seem to me it'd be awfully complicated to try and track that there's a pro forma going on, or maybe you have something scheduled. I know, for example, one of my colleagues had to reschedule his golf tournament twice when special sessions popped up in the middle, and he had to come to Richmond instead of, and it cost him, or his campaign, I guess, money because he had to reschedule and he couldn't get a refund. But I can just imagine, I can only imagine the complexity of trying to figure out whether we're doing a pro forma session that day or not when those situations arise. And I understand you're trying to incentivize us not to be in special. I appreciate that, but I could see situations where one chamber or the other wants to be in special and the other one doesn't, and then games start happening to try and leverage it, and this just creates more leverage, which to me sort of inhibits the freedom of our chamber to run our chamber as we like. So, I mean, you don't have any concern about that?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any concern about that. I don't think it's that hard to know if we're in pro forma or not. I would just ask Senator McDougal or Senator McClellan, since they're usually the people that are here for pro forma every time. Well, I trust her successor will make sure that they're there for pro formas.
Okay, so my question to you is then what happened, I have seen a time when we have not adjourned and we will go, we don't adjourn Saturday, we don't have not adjourned. We go 3-4 months, we have not adjourned.
We're not meeting.
But so we can raise then, right?
Yes, under this bill, you'd be able to raise then.
Okay. Any other members have any questions? Again, for the last time.
Mr. Chair, I'll
yes, sir.
Speak to the bill then, and I'll make a motion. I mean, we could pick this apart with hypothetical and hypothetical, but the bottom line is, we're in here, we're voting. We can't raise money while we're in session, while we're voting on bills. Sometimes we're in special session. We ought not have a fundraiser or a breakfast that morning and then go vote on their bills. It's pretty simple, and there may be problems, and we can clean it up, but come on. We got all these bills. We're in special session. We're coming in that day. Don't have a fundraiser. Don't send out an email to a group of people when you're getting ready to go vote on their bill that afternoon. Don't send out an email that morning asking for money. So I move that we report this bill.
All right. Do we have a second? One time?
Second.
Who?
Thank you.
Okay. Second. Okay. It's been properly moved and second that we report the bill. Please open the roll.
Ayes 12, noes 2, 1 abstention.
Could you imagine
You're a great chairman.
You getting 2 bills out of this committee?
Well, And Mr. Chairman, I'm not greedy. I have a fourth bill.
Hey, don't overdo it now.
But I'd like to work on that some more. And if I could take that by for the week, I'd appreciate it.
What's that number, please?
Mr. Chairman, that bill number is Senate Bill 1427.
1427 by for the day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, committee.
All right. Any other member? Yes.
He doesn't need to be here.
Can we do it? Okay, let's go. Okay. Motions referred.
All right. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
with regard to Senator Rouse's bill, Senate Bill 1524, I would move that we re-refer that bill to the Committee on Local Government.
Is that local government? It's on the docket. It's the very first one. Okay. Open the roll, please.
Whether we're going to expel you from the Senate.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you so much. Any other members present? Bill, that we haven't heard any members present? Wait a minute, chill out. I'm talking about who's sitting out in the audience, not those who are here. Okay, that's Senator Evans, 1180, please. Senator Evans, I believe you have an amendment to the bill.
This revisits a topic from last year, and there's a line amendment.
The proper move is second to refer to line amendment. All in favor, sign saying aye.
Aye.
All right, go ahead. Where's the line amendment? You have that?
Yeah, I have the line amendment. Mr. Chair, on line 23 of the introduced bill, after administration, strike or. And then on line 26 of the introduced bill, after funds, insert semicolon or Romanet 4, voter registration drives conducted pursuant to section 24.2-416.6.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This revisits a topic that Senator Stanley introduced to the committee last year, which was aid for local electoral boards or general registrars from an outside benefactor. We passed SB 80 last year in a bipartisan way, but sometimes we learn after legislation that we need to improve on the implementation in order for the bill to serve its true purpose without unintended obstacles. This is one of those examples. Last year in committee, it was the bipartisan will of the committee to ensure that grants could be given to electoral boards as long as the standard process of the governing body is adhered to as they would through a normal appropriations process. And we want to make sure we have secure elections and that our registrars have the guidance and resources to run the elections efficiently. However, it's resulted in some elections administrators feeling an unfair disadvantage in how they're resourced. So I have some witnesses who can explain a little bit more about the consequences of that legislation and how this would correct it. If we could hear from them, I think that would be the best course.
Anyone here to speak in favor of this bill, please come forward.
Those
have
on
a witness first. Adams, that's what we talking about.
Is Missy here?
You have one.
Those on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, Deb Wake, League of Women Voters of Virginia. We thank the patron and the committee for supporting this amendment that preserves the third-party registration drives. Throughout Virginia in your districts, the League members are assisting in registering voters using a process that is specifically qualified under Virginia statutory law as third-party voter registration drives. This change resolves a conflict with that current law. Restrictions in current law that prevent election officials from accepting funds and services from private sources in practice have proven to be too broad and vague to implement. And in our written statement, we provide details about our experiences with how the law has been interpreted and the impact in that. And so we thank you for, we do support this bill as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Good afternoon. Tram Wynn with New Virginia Majority. We appreciate Senator Eben for trying to address some issues that arose after the bill that passed last year. In addition to just private funds, it actually prohibited technical assistance and in-kind resources. So, for example, one of the top experts around making sure that vote-by-mail programs are secure, Amber McReynolds from the Vote at Home, who has been brought into both red states and blue states to provide technical assistance, would not have been able to come to Virginia to help perhaps address some of the issues that we saw in the 2022 midterms with some of those registrations and those, mailers that were misdirected, et cetera. So we believe that this will fix some of those issues and provide opportunity for registrars and the Department of Elections to get some expertise as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Anyone present else speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in the Zoom who in favor of the bill?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is one speaker.
Okay.
Ann Gregorian, if you can unmute and speak now.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the bill. Would you still like me to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes. So I feel that this bill aims to circumvent that recent law that the lady just spoke about with private monies inserted into elections. Virginia has on staff at taxpayer expense nonpartisan experts, well-qualified subject matter experts on election law, election policy, election administration. So I do not think that private individuals and NGOs should be inserted into the election system to influence or attach strings which allow increased access to our voted data or processes and technology choices. It has the singular bill of chipping away at the protections against partisan influence in our election processes through private funds. And I really urge you, please vote no on this. Keep elections the people's business, not private organizations' business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Anyone else that is present that like to speak in opposition to the bill, please come forward.
Gayleen, forgive me for the pronunciation.
That's right,
Knoyton.
Okay.
That's fine. Good afternoon. I'm Gayleen Knoyton with the Virginia NAACP.
Excuse me, ma'am. Are you for or against this bill, please?
For the bill. In support of it.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Continue your testimony, please.
Are you there, Miss? Are you there?
I'm sorry, Gayleen, did that complete your testimony?
Yes,
Okay.
and we support the bill.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Vic Nichols, if you can unmute and begin your testimony now.
Thank you. 25 state legislatures, two examples, Alabama with HB 194 and Mississippi HB 1365 enacted legislation to restrict large infusions of private funding going into elections, according to the Capital Research Center. Scott Waters of that group said, we studied the way the money flowed in all the battleground states, and in every one of those, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn, and Georgia, the money skewed very disproportionately to Democratic jurisdictions. They weren't helping everyone vote. They were especially helping Democratic jurisdictions vote. It's not illegal for the election offices to take in the money, but it is illegal for a charity to try to get involved in that kind of skewing of election results. And that's exactly what this does. This should not be passed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Anyone is present in opposition to the bill like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Committee. My name is Lindsay Zaya. I'm with the Virginia Institute for Public Policy, and I'd like to stand in opposition to SB 1180. Although it's understandable that there does need to be technical assistance, administration of elections is a core government function, and Virginians who pay their tax dollars really deserve to be free of the worry that those elections could be influenced by any private interests through money that comes through non-profits or non-governmental entities. And so for those reasons, I stand in opposition of the bill.
Thank you so much. Last call. Anyone else present like to speak for or opposition of this bill? Any member on the committee want to speak for or opposition to this bill? Any comments? If not, I'm ready for a motion. Adam, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, just briefly, the language last year about any other expense incurred in the conduct of elections is pretty broad and vague to implement. With many of those types of gifts, grants, or services do not affect the conduct of an election. Without the clarifications laid out in the bill, we're delegating the interpretation of the law to local counsel in our counties and municipalities, and a list of things that the bill could prohibit without amendments, or if you want to give donuts to the poll workers, or in-kind presentations or training from a national policy expert, or in-kind reports and research on election administration, or that sort of thing. Or even, if a ride-sharing company wanted to provide free or discounted rates to poll workers, that would not be allowed, among other things.
Thank you so much. We rule by motions, please.
I move the bill that we report the bill.
Second. Properly moving something that we report the bill. Open the roll, please.
Ayes 8, noes 7.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Senator Marston, out there, sir, you out there, please?
I am, sir.
Yes, sir. I believe we have a substitute for us.
Yes, we do. In fact, if the staff could report, it's more of a line amendment. It's a substitute, excuse me.
Yes, sir, please.
All right, what the line amendment?
Do we need to move the substitute first?
Yes.
Motion to move the substitute. Second, properly move the second that we move the substitute. All in favor, use the sign saying aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Yes, sir.
Thank you. This line amendment addresses some concerns of unfunded mandates and logistical issues in localities. The word practical means optional. The words practicable means mandated. So what this is just an option. And right now, election officers are approved by the local party and committee chairs, so they are partisan-approved officials. For example, a Democratic chief election officer and a Republican deputy chief election officer, or vice versa, are at each voting precinct on election day. And what this bill does is say that when it's practical, that one member of each political party drive the envelope to the collection point. And this bill brings the transportation of election day voted ballots further into conformity with the transportation of ballot drop box voted ballots, where two officials are involved in pickup and transportation. The bill would issue guidelines to the election officers so that both parties' officers would be encouraged to transport and turn in the election day ballots to the central location. We have heard reports, and I have talked to someone individually about having witnessed this, of officers being followed in other vehicles from the voting precinct to the central location. This scares me. My wife has been an election official, and I wouldn't want her driving a car by herself to deliver that with people following her in automobiles. That, I think, is a little bit scary. So what we have here is some additional certainty that the ballots are being looked at by both sides and being transported by both sides. But it's only when practicable, because there are going to be precincts, obviously, in the state where the logistics and the time and the distance, make this impossible. So I think we're accomplishing two things here. We're aligning up with the way we do ballot drop boxes, and we're also, I think, providing some security for people who are driving these ballots, given the fact that people are beginning to follow them.
Mr. Chair.
Let me finish. Okay. And I'll call you. You finish it?
We did a constituent survey last year. Election security is a very important thing to people, and so that's the bill.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Senator Marston, I wasn't able to pull up the substitute on Legislative Information Services, and I see in my file that the registrars wrote a letter. They were concerned about some parts of this. Did the substitute address
primarily, yes. There may still be some, but this made people much more comfortable with the bill, because it didn't create a mandate that you had to do it, because it is impossible in some situations. I spoke with Kate Hanley from Fairfax County, who expressed that concern to me, and she feels better about the bill at this point.
Brooks, do you have the substitute? Some of them have the short form substitute.
Mr. Chairman, I sent it, but I just went and tried to resend it, so hopefully, let's see if it works this time.
Can you just read the change instead of the whole thing?
Yeah, I could probably explain the differences. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, the major differences are, so in the original bill where it took away, where it either crossed out the night of or added the night of or crossed out noon the next day, we unstruck all that language, so that's still a possibility because the registrars wanted to be able to have a cap report the next day if counting went past the day of the election. And instead, we have that all the envelopes and materials shall be delivered by an officer of election to the clerk, to the circuit court where the election was held. And then there's a separate sentence that says, the sealed envelope shall be delivered by one officer of election representing each political party whenever practical. And that's the major difference.
All right, thank you. Question from the members?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman. One minute. One at a time, please. Mr. Bell. Senator Bell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps what he just said satisfies my question, but I still can't get the substitute to work. And my question was really about the wording about the night of, because many times it goes past midnight. And can you reread how that was worded and if this would apply in those situations?
Mr. Chair, Senator, yes. So none of that language about noon the next day. So I think if you go to section 668, that's on lines 86 to 96, I think, of the, or let me see.
Mr. Chairman, specifically, I'm talking about like starting on line 20.
20, okay. So yeah, on line 20, where it says, where is it? On the night of the election, that is no longer in the bill. So on that line in the substitute, it reads, I'll read the last sentence, so the last two sentences. The poll book statements and sheets thus sealed and directed, the sealed counted ballot envelope and container, and the unused, defaced, spoiled, and set aside ballots properly accounted for, packaged and sealed, shall be conveyed by an officer of election to the clerk of court by noon the day following the election. And then there's the new sentence. The package and sealed election material shall be delivered by one officer of election representing each political party whenever practical.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
All right, who was next, please? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron.
Yes, ma'am.
And it could be council, but what would be stopping two members of each party from delivering these ballots? Is there anything that would be prohibiting them? I'm trying to understand if we actually need a bill to
they could certainly
encourage this.
They could certainly do that if maybe they knew each other and agreed upon it. I think that would be rather unusual. That's not been the practice before, and I don't think that kind of a voluntary system would be effective. I think what the operant situation here is that, hey, if we can do this and it makes sense, for us to do this, because I don't have to take you back across to Tangier Island from that would obviously not work. And so what this does is make sure that if it's practical, it's not mandatory. But I don't think that people doing this without some kind of code reference here, they wouldn't even know that it's a possibility, and someone might object.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's my question for the patron, if he wants to answer. It's probably more for Brooks, counsel. But when I look at language that says as practical, and I think about the 247 precincts in my jurisdiction or the 4,000 or 5,000 precincts statewide, and somebody trying to figure out what's practical or not practicable, in court, it seems to me that that's an awful lot of room for interpretation. And so, I mean, if I'm a judge, you know, I'm trying to figure out what's practical, what isn't practical. I'm thinking there's like a 10, 15 different factors I could look at to figure out if it's practical. And it seems to me if I'm an attorney, it sounds like a great place to get in the sandbox and play around to try and find out what the right answer is without a lot tighter guardrails on something like that. And, you know, we never have any litigation over elections or anything, so I'm just curious what counsel thinks about that standard as being an actual workable standard that would give some predictability to our electoral process.
Senator Serville, that word practical, is that a word that lawyers use when they want to hide something? Just want to make sure.
My understanding, and I'll
I plead not guilty.
Refer to Brooke here, is we chose that language on purpose rather than the one that we see more often, which is practicable, because practical means optional. And if somebody has a choice to do something, I don't think there is a standard that you would have to apply to that. Practicable, yes, you would have to do that. That's why this word was chosen. Counsel, is that correct?
Well, let me say, well, let me answer the question first before I ask my question. Was he correct?
Mr. Chair, yeah, that's what I was. That's what we discussed when we were writing the bill. That's correct.
Mr. Chair.
Can I ask my question? Go ahead.
So lawyers would have to litigate what practical is.
Lord Jesus.
Lawyers and courts would have to decide what that is. I still haven't been able to pull up the substitute, and I would move that the bill go by for the day until we can get a good look at the substitute and see if it does what
that sounds reasonable. But you know, the whole idea here is that it's up to the judgment of the individual.
Mr. Chairman, I do not want to move the bill by the day because we can't understand one word. Now, I intentionally put two lawyers on the other side of me to help me to explain something because I'm not a lawyer. Now, if these two lawyers on the side of me, if they can't tell me what it means, why are y'all sitting beside me? I got y'all to help me as chairperson, who is not a lawyer, to help Brooks, not a lawyer, to explain to me these things. I do not want to pass by the bill because of one day. My favorite lawyers, if we were in court, he could help me out by giving me all I want. But I don't want you, unless the committee see fit to, I don't want to use the excuse of bypassing this bill for one day because someone cannot interpret what that means. Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Chairman, it's exciting.
That was practical.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Brooks is speaking. Right. Mr. Chairman, if it would help the committee put it into context, Section 24.2-310.1 is another example in code where we use the term practical, and it has to do with polling places being located in public buildings whenever practical. I don't know if that helps, but that is some context for the use of that term already in code.
And thank you for that research.
Thank you so much. We are now, anyone presently in opposition of the bill? Anyone presently in opposition of the bill?
Those on Zoom who'd like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand electronically. We have speakers on Zoom who'd like to speak in opposition, Mr. Chairman.
Ask Nichols what she thinks.
Well, 1 minute. Then so I want to make sure that also if I fail to mention anyone present in support of the bill, I'll come back to you. Let's get those in opposition to the bill first. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Allison Robbins, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Allison Robbins. I'm the Director of Elections for Wise County, and I'm with the Voter Registrars Association. Firstly, I'd really like to thank Senator Marsden for working on this bill and addressing some of our concerns related to the return of election materials on election night and that's feasibility. We have, very grave concerns about the interpretation of the word practical. It's while it's a word that is obviously already used in the Code of Virginia, given the current climate and recent litigation in Prince William County, we feel like that word is still open to interpretation, and we would find ourselves in a quagmire should we not be able to secure officers of election of both political parties to return election materials on election night. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
That completes the speakers in opposition on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
My concern to the committee is that let's take the precinct where I live in Georgetown. Then we try to pick people who live in the community to serve at that location. Then my registrar says that if a second person has to ride from Georgetown to Great Bridge, which is roughly 2 or 3 miles, then somebody got to bring somebody back. Secondly, she says that will require for her to pay a second person for that. And we have not had no problems in Chesapeake on this. So the question she told me to ask, who will pay for that second person? She said, right now, if that happens, a second person has to be paid for. Then I asked Senator Howard, who is chairperson. As y'all know, I'm not a favor of the Finance Committee because everything goes to finance. And so, and this is one time I want to say it, but I'm scared to say that because everybody was saying, you are sending something to finance, so I'm not going to do it. So, but the question was asked that why are we doing that? We don't have no problem in our area. And sometimes, if there's an area that is the problem, sometimes folks says, we want to let the bill drawn to this area because we're having problems in District 8, but not in District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my second is, who will pay for that second person to drive with the number one person and bring them back to their cars?
My understanding, and I could be wrong, is that people are paid a daily rate, to do this. They work more than 8 hours, and there isn't an hourly kind of situation here. I don't think it would have a cost, but a motion to report and re-refer to finance would not be. It's always good to have somebody else take a look at something, but I don't think it's a problem.
I asked her that same question, and she said that it would not be a state responsibility, that it would be coming from the localities because it's not state, it would come from the localities. So that's it. So now, before we do that, let me make sure I will give everybody the opportunity to speak. So anyone who is present that I failed to mention, that those who are presently like to speak in support of the bill, please come forward. I apologize about calling you early.
No problem.
But I got excited between these two lawyers, and I got excited.
I'm Rebecca Gottwalt from Fairfax, an election officer, and I've served as election chief before. We take a lot of training, and we take our oath very seriously. So at the end of the day, if I'm the person going to turn this stuff in, because that's what's practical, I don't see a problem with that. If it is a thing where we can send multiple people, great. If we're short-staffed, someone gets sick, if someone leaves, we do what's practical, and we get the ballots in, and we report as quickly as we can and as accurately as we can, and I'm in support of that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Anyone else present that likes to speak in support of the bill? For the last time, anyone in opposition? For the last time, any members on the staff, people like to have anything to say. If not, then I'm ready for a motion. Yes, ma'am.
Have we heard from the registrars?
Yep, Allison Robbins.
Okay, sorry.
My question, let me chill out. When I ask the question, anyone presently, I don't ask who they are.
Mr. Chair.
You could be the president of the United States. If you don't come forward, you will not speak.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Just an idea, because this would be hard to mandate, what about if we sent a letter to the electoral boards and just encourage them in their practice to ask the elections officers to work together collaboratively, a Democrat and Republican, instead of putting it in the code? I just have a little bit of concern about some of the legal issues that have been raised. Would that be something that we might consider?
Let's get them straight.
Mr. Chair.
Wait a minute. Let's get some straight from this chair. I say at least 2 or 3 times. I always ask those in support. I was always asked those in opposition. I even made 2 or 3 times up here. And when I asked anybody of all minds clear, and when I ask for a motion, that motion is made. I'm gonna do it this time. When that motion is made, I'm not gonna take no more discussion after that because I give everybody more than ample time to speak after everything has been clear, even up here. So when I say all minds are clear, if they're not clear, you want to say something, fine. Once I ask for a motion, and that motion is made, I'm not gonna have no more discussion.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Yes, sir.
Motion is to gently PBI with a letter from the chairman to the State Board of Elections articulating what my colleague Senator Boysko just mentioned.
Second.
Properly motion and second. The PPI this bill with the letter to who now?
The Electoral Board?
So thank you. Okay, Electoral Board. From the clerk. From the clerk. Yes, sir. If all, from the chair, if all minds are clear, please open the board up.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Like all those green lights. It's
Thank
great.
you, sir. Senator Dees, 1380.
That was bad for the day.
Bye for the day.
You're down to yours and
Okay.
Boysko.
Jennifer Boysko, Senator. We got 2 bills left to do. Then after that, then the subcommittee will meet immediately after the full committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I have Senate Bill 1471, and it is also chief patroned with our colleagues, Senator Barker, Senator Marsden, and Senator Surville. This is a bill that would ban the personal use of campaign funds that are donated to political candidates running for office in the Commonwealth. The Senate passed with bipartisan support last year in the 2022 legislative session of almost an identical bill, but it was died an untimely death in the House. The most significant difference between the version that passed last year and the version that is included this year has provisions allowing campaign staff to receive education, training, and professional development that could be paid for with campaign funds. Many of us send our staffers when they join to campaign training so that they are more efficient and effective. That would be allowed, but a college tuition would not. Nearly all other states and the federal government prohibit the use of campaign funds by a candidate or their families. But in Virginia, we still could take our family and on a Caribbean cruise if we choose, and I don't think that's right. The donors support their candidates with the belief that the money that they will give will go to efforts to elect the candidate of their choice. And Virginians have a right to be assured by statute that their elected officials do not personally profit from running for office. This bill provides guidelines we need to avoid personal use of campaign funds. Even if none of us, not any of our legislators, has to change our personal behavior as a result of this passage because we have integrity and are not abusing the system, I believe that Virginians will have more reason to trust the system and their legislators. So, to go into the weeds a little bit, SB 1471 employs the federal definition of personal use known as the irrespective test. And under this definition, any expense that would exist irrespective of the candidate's campaign for office is deemed ineligible for use of campaign funds. So, like if a candidate uses their car to drive to campaign events, that doesn't mean that campaign funds can be used to pay the monthly car payment on that car, as the bill would still arrive whether the candidate was running or not. But because we have seen an influx in young family, moms and dads running, child care expenses incurred as a direct result of campaign activities, clothing like campaign T-shirts and hats would be include food like pizza for your staff or for a campaign event. And as I said, training for your legislative staff would be included as exceptions for the personal use rule.
Thank you. Anyone present like to speak in favor of this bill, please come forward. One minute apiece, please. 1 minute apiece,
Okay.
please.
My name's Jessica Mott
Yes,
from
ma'am.
Arlington, Virginia.
Yes, ma'am.
I represent We of Action. I support this bill. It's important for me to have confidence in my donations, or that my donations are being used for their intended purposes, campaign expenses, and I think this bill would address that. 73% of Virginians support restricting personal use of campaign funds. Passage of this bill is long overdue. It's been considered for many years, and I hope that the General Assembly this year can go ahead and achieve this low-hanging fruit.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, please.
Hi, Deb Wake, League of Women Voters of Virginia supports this bill because it addresses the League's long-held belief that the personal use of campaign funds should be disallowed. We also support the bill's inclusion of a detailed list of acceptable uses that the code currently lacks. We are pleased that the bill acknowledges child care expenses are exempt from the personal use ban, and we hope that you will additionally consider expanding this exemption from personal use to include all dependent care expenses, as West Virginia and Vermont have recently done.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nancy Morgan from Big Money Out. We definitely support this. We're unique in the nation in terms of having unlimited money going into campaigns and no limit on personal use. As my colleague mentioned, this bill was first introduced in 2014, so it's been 8 years. It was discussed in the Subcommittee on Campaign Finance exhaustively 2 years ago. That committee didn't meet this year. It also addresses frivolous complaints, which is something that legislators say they're concerned about, but there's a rigorous process involved and confidential process in reviewing this. And we just think this is the lowest hanging fruit, so please pass this bill. Then you won't have to hear it next year. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Next, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Greenaway. I'm a retired federal law enforcement officer. I also own a small business in Caroline County, Virginia, and I support this bill. The reason I support this bill is because when I talk to my neighbors about campaign finance in rural Virginia, the first thing they say is, oh, you're going to limit the campaign finance use of our legislators who use that as their personal slush fund. I shouldn't have my neighbors saying that about the money that you all receive in your campaigns, and there shouldn't be that perception of my neighbors that this is somehow a fund for you to use for your personal expenses. So therefore, I come forward for you as a rural Virginian asking you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Stephen Spitz from Fairfax County, and I'm representing Progressive Democrats of America in Virginia, and we strongly support this bill because we think campaign funds should be used for campaigns, not for personal use. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for another opportunity to speak. Briefly put, as a politics major at UVA, good governance is crucially important to me. I support Senator Boysko's bill because Virginia cannot continue to be a national outlier on the personal use of campaign funds. At least 47 other states and at the federal level, there are limits on the personal use of campaign funds. Michigan, for example, sanctions such violations with up to 90 days in jail, a $1,000 fine, or both. For the sake of Virginia voters who contribute or don't to our state campaigns, we need to ensure that legislators and candidates are not financially profiting from campaign funds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Anyone in the Zoom like to speak in favor of the bill?
Anyone on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There is one speaker, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Let's go.
Vic Nichols, when your screen loads, please unmute and provide your testimony. Vic Nichols, if you could unmute and provide your testimony now.
Thank you. Yes, this is a wonderful thing to have. I just wanted to make sure, because my feed went out a little bit on the senator. My concern is the staff. I don't know how many people know it, but I've dealt with a lot of LAs. They do a whole lot of work. And taking them out for pizza or something, or even somebody that served you for 5 years giving a plaque or something like that, I want to make sure that the staff is able to have tokens and things for what they do. I appreciate everything that they do. And that's one thing that I want to make sure of, that there is leeway in this to be able to give them to that. Other than that, I totally am for this. Thank you.
That completes the speakers in favor, Mr. Chairman.
Those who are in opposition, will you please come forward? Anyone in opposition, will you please come forward? Anyone in the Zoom in opposition?
There are no speakers in opposition in the Zoom, Mr.
Members
Chairman.
from the committee.
Mr. Chair.
Jennifer? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a proposed amendment that I'd like to run past the Senator Boysko. Would you be find it a friendly amendment on line 79 instead of for child care expenses to say dependent care expenses?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McClellan, I would consider that a friendly amendment, and I think it's a very thoughtful one. Thank you.
So I would move that on line 379, strike child and insert dependent.
Second.
Been properly moved and second that we strike and add, what's the word, Senator? Dependents. All in favor of the usual sign of saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Who was next?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have another request for what I hope is a friendly amendment. And I know the senator was not on the Joint Studies Subcommittee, but one of the key pieces of the legislation that came out of Joint Subcommittee, which got monkeyed around with last session, was enactment clause number 3 from the original bill, which directed the state Board of Elections to adopt regulations that incorporated guidance from the Federal Elections Commission. Because the federal elections, I mean, the construct that we adopted was to parallel what the feds had done. And if you don't incorporate the guidance the FEC has given with adopting that regime, then you miss out on all the guidance that the feds have given as to what's in and what's out, which was kind of key as to why we structured it that way. And it looks to me like this version that got drafted might have been like the second or third iteration from last session, as opposed to the initial one that came out of our joint study, which was the one that we agreed to on a bipartisan basis back then. And so, yeah, I would suggest that, we include another enactment clause, and we take it, what I'm looking at is enactment clause number 3 from the introduced version last year, which is on lines 506 through 512, which says we have to, the regulations that are to be issued under enactment clause number 2 are to parallel that.
Hold on 1 minute.
And I would ask if she thinks that's a friendly amendment.
Senator Bosco, if there's a lot to adjust, would you prefer that we bypass today to work this out?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Serville, my understanding was we were modeling exactly what we had passed last year, and I would, if this was an omission, I would be happy to accept that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, what happened, I believe what happened, Senator Bell can correct me if I'm wrong, is there was some consternation on the other side about referencing the federal regs, and so this was done in an effort to try and appease them or something like that. But this enactment clause was absolutely critical in terms of the statutory structure that we picked because of all the guidance the feds have. You can go look up and see whether a T-shirt or a slice of pizza or whatever, all that stuff is in or out by looking at the federal regs.
Mr. Chairman.
Wait a minute. I'm hearing about the pieces, and I want to know if she is in favor of it. What are you talking about? You're going to tell me what the enactment clause is.
Mr. Chairman, I can read it to you, but I don't think it'll mean anything if I read it to you.
No, but say it to me so I can understand what you're talking about, at least that way.
The Federal Elections Commission, Mr. Chairman, has been issuing guidance on what constitutes personal use for the last probably 3 decades or so. Okay. And you can go on their website if you're concerned about, whether you're eating a slice of pizza at a campaign event, like whether that counts or whether it doesn't, or whether if your campaign buys T-shirts, whether you can wear one of those T-shirts or not. The feds have given guidance on that. And so the incorporation of that guidance was critical in the statutory structure we picked, because we made our code vaguer, because we knew we could follow up. We had all that FEC stuff we could refer to give us guidance as to what was in or out. And so that's what this enactment clause would do.
Mr. Bell, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, while I would love to be able to correct Senator Saraville, I'm going to have to agree with him on this. I carried this bill last year, and the idea from the joint study on this was that we would leverage the good work that has been done federally on this, which provides a great deal of definitions and information and guidance. We would be reinventing the wheel. So with that, I know there's other comments on this. I will say I think this is a very badly needed piece of legislation. Last year, we made it out of the Senate with very strong bipartisan support. I recall the minority leader speaking in favor of the bill on the floor, and unfortunately, it did not get a warm reception in the House. I declined to carry it this year, and hoping that Senator Boysko could push it farther than I pushed it. But I agree with her comment that this is badly needed, and without the guidance, if we don't use the federal guidance, Mr. Chairman, I would say that we would have to develop a great deal of guidance here in Virginia, and in many cases be reinventing the wheel on the good work that's already been done.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask Senator Saraville, I'm phoning a friend who has been working on this longer than I have, on lines 369 through 395, it really goes through and lays out exactly what is allowed and what isn't. I would like you just to put your eyes on that and just make sure that we're not duplicating
Mr. Chairman.
efforts here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that language is identical from the bill that went in last year, but there's a lot of fill in the blank stuff that the FEC has done beyond that. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add on that.
Hold up, baby. Now, we are doing a whole lot of talking, fixing things, talking, and nothing in writing. Now, if you can't get it right, I'm going to bypass for the day, because I'm hearing what you're saying, but to me, if I leave here and if someone asks me outside the door, what would that bill all about? And I say to myself, I'm going to call Scott, they'll call Mr. Bell, and call you, say, tell him what it's all about. I'm the chairperson. I don't know what you're talking about. Now, I want to fix it, but I don't want to fix it with words without it being in writing.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm going to do is this. Now, if you don't agree with what they're saying, then I'm going to bypass for the day.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
do
sir.
agree with him, and I'm happy to accept the amendment. I am happy to do that. I also have a really comprehensive list, if it would make you more comfortable, about what's allowed and what isn't. For instance, as Vic Nichols called and asked, it does permit you to buy a small gift for a
Vic Nichols is my friend. She lives in Chesapeake.
I know. That's why I'm saying it.
Now, so here's this. Now,
I move the amendment that.
the properly motion second to remove the amendment. All in favor, use the sign of saying aye.
Aye.
On the amendment. All opposed. Now that's done. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could bring the committee's attention to line 388, Brooks. It says a home mortgage, rent, or utility payment. If we can make a change there that says home mortgage, non-campaign related rent or utility payment. 388. Because many of us rent a campaign office and pay utilities for that campaign office.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Reeves, my understanding is it's very clear in the bill that otherwise authorized expenditures in connection with the candidate's campaign are allowable and permissible, and so that would be under the language in paragraph use of campaign funds from 370 through 382. My interpretation when we spoke with counsel, and perhaps you'd like to clarify that.
Stop a minute. Stop. Wait a minute, sir. You're talking on the line. Now, Mr. Brooks, do you have all this damn? Because what I'm going to do is this, that we keep getting question. This bill is going by for the day. because I want it right, and I'm just sitting here, one after another. They keep asking questions, adding stuff, asking questions, adding stuff. I don't want that. I want to be able to have it right. Now, so if the members of the committee, if they see fit that this can be worked out with getting it out of here, fine. But if one more question is asked about changing something, then I'm going to bypass for the day because it's just not right for those who are sitting out in the audience and not right for me to sit here and saying that they just one after another you're adding, taking away, adding, taking away. I don't have nothing in front of me. Now, if I can get a motion that we can fix it on the floor, get it out here, fine. But if one more question, again, ask something else for it, it can be bypassed for the day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just ask if our council could clarify that expenditures authorized in connection with your campaign would include paying your
Yes,
rent
ma'am.
for an office.
Mr. Brooks?
Mr. Chair, Senator, yes, so the irrespective test in subsection B says that for the purpose of this subsection, a contribution shall be considered to be converted to personal use if the contribution is used to fulfill any commitment, obligation, or expense of a person that would exist irrespective of the person seeking, holding, or maintaining public office, which includes the following, and then a home mortgage, rent, and utility payment. Coupling that with the amendment made that would reintroduce the FEC's guidance, I'm fairly certain that federal candidates can, of course, rent campaign offices, so that would fairly securely put you in the position where renting a campaign office would not be impermissible under the statute.
Ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
McDougall down here. Mr. Chairman, I just mentioned this to Senator Servell. As we go through the process, I think that everybody agrees you shouldn't pay home mortgage, home rent, home utilities, shouldn't pay for your regular automobile expenses, country club, all those things. And I think the vast majority of us are okay with the using it for expenses for dependent care. But wouldn't it be a lot cleaner if we just said you can't do these instead of going through all the other guidance? Just say you cannot use these expenses for home rent or mortgage, instead of having to refer back to something else and we have a conversation. So as it goes through the process, just ask that you consider saying you can use it for dependent care and you can't use it for these 12 things. And then everybody knows, nobody gets tricked.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, and Senator McDougall and I talked about this on the side, but we crossed this bridge when we spent, I think it was like 9 hours talking about this in the joint subcommittee where we decided that in all the various permutations, et cetera, that this was the best way to shut this down, lock it down, incorporate all the work that's been done by thousands of people already. And we thought this was the simplest way to do it that would put people on notice. And so my answer to Senator McDougall was no.
Mr. Chairman, I move to report.
Second. As amended.
Properly move and report as amended. I don't know how many times it has been amended, but whatever. I'm doing that. And if it's approved, it will have to go to finance. All in favor, please open the board up, please. I'm going to vote yes. Please don't ask me what we just got done. Please don't.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you so much. And has report to finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be happy to sit down and go over it with you individually if you'd wish.
Thank you so much. Bless your heart. Thank you so much. I got it. 1440. We got one more bill for the subcommittee. We need a motion that the committee finds the oath of office and certificate for election of Ern R. Rouse is proper order.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So move.
Proper move and second that the papers are in order for Ern R. Rouse. Please open the roll. Thank you. 14 up. Who got D? Yes.
I got D.
Okay.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. My last bill is Senate Bill 1442. If you look at the bill presently, the registrar's office have 7 days.
Take over the committee?
Yes, sir. Please do. Thank you. I got excited.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, we have Senate Bill 1442 before us. Senator Spruill, will you present the bill?
The register asked for me to carry this bill to help with the time allowed to certify the votes of the State Board of Election. With November election having Veterans Day falls during that time, the board abstracting the vote, they needed to change the time. All we're doing is change the time from 6 days to 10 days because election time falls during the time of Veterans Day, and they wanted more time to get their work done. They asked to change from 6 days to 10 days.
Okay, so this bill just basically changes from 6 to 10.
Yes.
Is there anybody in support of the bill that would like to testify? It seems like this bill is probably in pretty good shape.
Those on Zoom who would like to testify to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. We have a few speakers, Mr. Chairman.
Do they want to testify this bill into opposition or okay?
Stephanie Lies.
Could we put a timer on them, please? 1 minute.
Stephanie Lies, when your screen loads, please unmute and provide your testimony.
Hi, good afternoon. Stephanie Isles. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar with the City of Norfolk. I'd like to thank Senator Spruill for introducing this bill on our behalf. This would help both the local registrars and electoral boards to accomplish what has become a very tight time frame with the extension of absentee ballots via Dropbox on Election Day, absentee ballots coming back that were dated by Election Day and received up till noon on the third business day, as well as our same-day voter registration now and processing those applications, reviewing provisional ballots. So we are hoping that you will vote in support of this measure as it will help us to get our election results to you without killing ourselves. So thank you so much.
The next speaker, please.
Vic Nichols, if you can unmute and provide your testimony now.
Yes, thank you. This is very much needed, and that is correct, is that does prove to be a problem because people who want to take a look at stats and things like that, the Chesapeake Registrar is extremely good about doing those types of things and, making sure that there are other eyes. She's always had all our stuff in order. And this just gives them a little bit more time, especially given how hard they work in the 2 weeks before. So a little bit extra time would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. With the next speaker, please.
That's the last speaker in favor of the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anybody in the room who's in opposition to this bill? Is anybody in the Zoom room in opposition?
If anyone would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers in opposition, Mr.
Thank you. Does
Chairman.
anybody in the committee have any questions to the patron? Okay, it's been moved and reported. Moved and seconded. The bill be reported. This doesn't have to go to finance, does it? No. Okay. Moved and seconded to be reported. The clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Those who are present, thank you so much. I'm the new chair, Pete, and I'm trying to get used to it. So bear with me a little bit. I'm trying to get used to that, and so I thought maybe I could have it all handed down when I put two lawyers beside me. That was the first mistake. I mean, I love him, though, you see, because he's my best friend. So thank you all so much. Now, when we adjourn, we will have the subcommittee report from this committee. Again, thank you all so much for coming. Bless your heart.
Mr. Chair, you could have put your